Hey, it's Zach, the one and only, sharing the moment I lived through and the story I have learned from others. This story didn't happen during a crisis. There was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation, no obvious conflict. That what makes it important. Some experiences does not change you loudly. They change you quietly. This is one of those stories. When I first started working with this client, everything felt fine. Requirement came in, we responded. Feedback was given, changes were made. It looked like a normal working relationship. Busy? Yes. Demanding? Yes. But nothing unusual. At least, not yet. Over time, I noticed something. Requests didn't really end, they just flow. Messages come late, follow ups came quickly. Changes appear midstream, not aggressively, not rudely, just constantly. And because nothing felt unreasonable on its own, I didn't push back. I adapted. I didn't question it because I told myself, this is what responsibility looks like. This is what being professional means. This is what clients expect. I believe that accommodating means doing a good job. And for a while, that belief worked. I started replying faster, adjusting quicker, absorbing more, not because I was told to, because I wanted to be reliable. I wanted to be seen as someone who could handle things, and slowly, responsiveness turned into reflex. The shift wasn't obvious, but I started checking messengers even when I didn't need to. I started thinking about work outside of work. I started planning responses before requests even came in. I didn't feel stressed. I feel alert, always on. There was one day where nothing special happened. No emergency, no conflict. But I felt tired in a very specific way. Not from workload, from being constantly available. That was new to me. Here's the tricky part. I was still delivering. Deadlines were met. Work was done. Feedback was okay. From the outside, everything looks fine. That makes it harder to question. I realized something uncomfortable. Being easy to work with can sometimes mean being easy to lean on. And leaning, if it doesn't stop, turns into weight. There was one request, not bigger than usual, not unreasonable, but something in me paused, not annoyed, just aware. I remember thinking, if I keep responding like this will never end. That thought scared me. It was hard to admit because nothing was technically wrong. No one crossed a line. No one demanded unfairly, which means the boundary problem was mine, and that was uncomfortable. For the first time, I didn't respond immediately. I sat with discomfort, not to plan a reply, but to understand the feeling. That pause feel risky, like I was doing something wrong. In that space, something became clear. I had been equating availability with value. The more available I was, the more useful I felt. That belief ran deeper than I expected. This wasn't just about work. it touched something personal. My need to be needed, my habit of caring more, my discomfort with saying no. This client didn't create that pattern, they reviewed it. I want to be clear. This isn't a story about a bad client. They were doing what clients do, asking, following up, expecting progress. The changes needed to be happen on my side. That pause I mentioned earlier felt wrong in my body. Not morally wrong, just unfamiliar. I keep checking my phone, not to respond, but to make sure nothing was on fire. Nothing was. And that silence made me uneasy. I realized I wasn't afraid of missing a deadline. I was afraid of changing the dynamic. Afraid that if I didn't respond quickly, I would be seen as less committed, less helpful, less reliable. That fear wasn't logical, but it was real. I didn't know how to draw boundaries without feeling like I was disappointing someone. Boundaries felt like rejection, like conflict, like a risk. So instead of drawing them clearly, I blur them. And blurring them felt safer until it wasn't. When I did respond, nothing bad happened. No confrontation, no anger, no pushback. Just normal. That surprised me. The story I had built in my head was much louder than reality. That moment forced me to look inwards. I had assumed expectations that were never stated. I had taken responsibility that was never explicitly mine. I had carried weight that no one asked me to carry, and I did it willingly. Something shifted after that. Not overnight, not dramatically, but my inner rules changed. I stopped equating speed with professionalism. I stopped believing that being always available means being valuable. I didn't stop caring. I just care differently. One of the hardest part was sitting with uncertainty, not knowing how people would react, not controlling perceptions, not over explaining, letting things be. That was uncomfortable, but it was also freeing. This wasn't about doing less work. I was still committed, still responsible, still engaged, but the way I show up become more intentional, more sustainable, and that's matter. Interestingly, the client didn't change much. They still ask questions, still follow up, still needed things. What changed was how I responded internally. And that made all the difference. Something else happened that I didn't expect. Respect grew, not loudly, not explicitly, but subtly. Clearer communications, more realistic expectations, healthier pacing. Boundaries didn't break the relationship, they strengthened it. This experience stayed with me because it touched a deep pattern. My habit of overgiving, my discomfort with limits, my need to be dependable. Seeing that clearly changed how I work with everyone else. I carry this story forward not as a rule, but as awareness. A reminder that responsibility without boundaries quietly drains you, And that sustainability isn't selfish. This wasn't a story about a difficult client. It was a story about how I related to responsibility, to availability, to my own limits. Sometimes the experiences that change us most aren't the dramatic one. They were the quiet one that force us to look at ourselves honestly. Next episode, I want to share a story about identity, about the moment when an old version of me no longer fits who I was becoming. I will see you in episode 7. Bye.